This week on The Futurists, Francesco Urso.
We as managers have the duty to embrace it's an inevitable tide. We shouldn't even debate on whether this is going to be the future or not. This is the future.
Hey there, welcome back to The Futurist. I'm Rob Tursik, and this week I'm speaking to someone that I recently met at the Hollywood Professionals Association meeting. That's a gathering of people who are focused on production and post-production technologies for the media industry. And while I was there, I met somebody who was so interesting, so riveting, that I said, hey, you know what, you've got to join me on the show. He brings great entrepreneurial energy. And I said, you know, we've been doing this show now for 4 years, and we haven't interviewed anybody about the future of being an entrepreneur. So folks, welcome to the show, Francesco Urso. Francesco, welcome. It's great to have you here on The Futurists. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. It was very nice to meet you.
Where are you right now? What part of the world are you in? I know you're traveling constantly for work.
Yes, I'm in Geneva, Switzerland right now.
Oh, right on. Great. And so we were, before the show, we were chatting a little bit about your book. You wrote a book called Quit to Win, which is kind of a surprising title, right? It's a catchy title in the sense that you don't tend to associate quitting with winning, right? Those two things seem to be the opposite. But that caught my interest. So tell us a little bit about what your principle there is, Quit to Win.
Quit to Win is my personal account of living my 11-year career at Procter & Gamble. I was a brand director there. I started there in Geneva in Switzerland. Then I moved to Moscow as a marketing director, brand director. Then I went to China and I started working in beauty care. And fell in love with beauty care, and I decided to leave to found Wolf Project, which is a men's skincare brand from scratch. And the book itself is not a billionaire's retrospective into how to start a company. You know, it's written from the trenches. I wrote it when I was still at Wolf Project. No, I'm not. It's from the trenches. Is in the hard days, in the good days. It's still extremely felt. And I was still building Wolf Project, and the central thesis of the book is the fact that quitting and quit to win. The winning part is not the financial aspect of creating your own startup and your company. Winning doesn't mean getting richer. Winning means living more intentionally and being the master of your fate and doing work you love. So in the book, I go through a few phases. Step one is, are you ready to quit? So why are you feeling this discomfort? What questions can you ask yourself to understand if you're ready to quit? Then we bust a few fears. All of my friends would say, I want to quit, but I don't have time to think about an idea. All the ideas I have are bad, or I'm too old. I cannot afford quitting. I cannot afford to have a family. And I don't have the perfect plan. So we bust all of those ideas. And then the last part of the book is okay, welcome to the club. You're a quitter. You quit. You're launching your startup, your company, your adventure, and all your references point are gone. When you are in a corporate, you are in a system that works wonderfully. You go to work, you have meetings, you have deadlines, and all of a sudden the handcuffs are gone. You need to manufacture self-discipline, rituals, ask for help. You need to report to your own self, and you need to face doubts and deep fears, comparisons. Maybe other people are for sure making more money than you at the beginning because you are virtually not making anything. And that's where you discover what winning really is. So in a nutshell, this is Quit to Win.
Great. Thanks for that description. That's helpful to understand. Why I was interested in having you on the show is I have a theory. Let me give you the theory, and then you can respond to it. So, as we were speaking about in Palm Springs, we were talking about how artificial intelligence is reshaping industries all simultaneously. It's reshaping many different industries. And there's a great deal of fear associated with that. Many of the people who are in those industries are afraid that they are going to be displaced. They're going to lose their jobs. The AI is going to steal their job. I don't know how true that necessarily is, but a lot of people feel that fear. So it's a really legitimate concern. Now, what I always say to people, the best way to find a new job is to create a company, right? Don't wait for someone to hire you. Don't go calling for a job. That's a painful process these days because you're usually dealing with an AI who's going to do the interviewing process. the better thing to do is to use the tools that are available today to start a new company. It's easier than ever. And that's the best way to create a job, is to create a new company. What do you think about that theory? Does that make sense to you, or does that sound facetious?
It does make sense to me. I think history has already showed us the way when electricity came. Let's go back 150 years, 200 years more or less. Electricity came, and people had the same fear. Some jobs were lost. There are
Yeah.
no more people that are lighting up the candles in the streets.
Gas lamps.
Pole.
Yeah.
There were people that would electricity came, and we don't have chimneys in the. We're not warming up our houses with wood, but we do it with electricity. And yeah, I don't know how you call them, the chain smokers. Like, how do you call the people that clean the pipes?
The chimney cleaners. Yeah. Chimney sweep.
Exactly. They almost don't exist anymore. Now, how many jobs did electricity create? Countless. Internet
Entire
arrived.
industries were rewired.
Entire
Factories changed.
entire industries, and the world has now probably 3 times the population, and most of us are employed. So, what's the employment rate of the world? 90%, more or less, 92% of the working population. Then internet came, and we were saying the same thing. So, is fear natural? Yes. I am an optimist on top of being like you, a futurist. So I believe in technology. I believe that we don't have today the solutions of today's problem, but tomorrow we will have them. Climate warming and all of the other things. We cannot anticipate our collective wisdom and knowledge of tomorrow. So I understand the fear. I believe it's justified. I believe my humble opinion is worth nothing. We are too close to the fear to judge it. We need to let some time flow to see the picture.
I think also people are afraid of AI because they don't know, right? So many people who are most afraid of it are the least familiar with it. They don't use it.
Correct.
They think it's purely a threat. They don't see any advantage to it. They don't see that it might be a great gift. It might be a great power. Okay, so we're now talking about 2 different fears, right? Because the one fear, if I'm working inside of a corporation, I'm afraid to leave. I'm afraid to go start a new company. I'm afraid to change jobs even sometimes. People stay with their job from fear. On the other hand, now we have this new threat, which is artificial intelligence that might displace you anyway. So we have a different fear coming, right? How do you think that's going to affect people who are maybe undecided about whether to start a new company, whether to leave their job or not? Which fear do you think is going to prevail? The fear of robots or the fear of starting a new business?
That's a very good question. Don't they all connect to the same solution, which is reinvent yourself? In the book, I have a concept that is called pick your poison. Pick your poison is either you are afraid and you live with, and you need to face this fear. You're afraid of AI, you're afraid of quitting your job, and sooner or later, go for it and face the fear. Do the jump, learn AI, quit your job, launch a company, and face your deepest fears. Or live with regret of never trying. Once I was having a run with, and it's in the book as well. I was having a run with one of the most brilliant corporate people I'd ever met. He was a senior vice president, and he gave inspirational talks. And I was like, Jim, why did you never launch your own brand, your own company? You are so brilliant. And excuse his French, he said, lack of balls size. I never had the balls to do it. I never had the courage to do it. And he didn't face his fear. He lived a bit with regret. So it's not fun to face your fears. It's not fun to be afraid of AI because it could kill your job. It's not fun to quit your company, to quit your corporate job. Personally, I hate to live with regret. I don't have any regrets. I have faced many fears, though. I had many dark days.
Let's go back to that moment at Procter & Gamble. So for the folks who are listening who aren't familiar with Procter & Gamble, it's a company that's more than 100 years old. It's the world leader in personal care around the world. It's a very famous company in the United States. Half the grocery store seems to be stocked with products from Procter & Gamble. But that's also true throughout Europe and in many other parts of the world. So what people don't tend to realize is it's a global company. Even though in the US it seems like an American company. When I lived in Germany, people thought it was a German company. Originally a soap manufacturer, but now they make just about every kind of personal care product. And one of the things that that company is famous for is their rigorous training program. So if you're a young person who's starting, they invest tremendous resources in educating you. Now, they hire people who are very well educated to begin with, but they add additional education and they invest tremendously in this. They have great programs for training. I remember very clearly when I was graduated from college, Procter & Gamble was presented as one of the best opportunities. And of course, my friends and I sneered at that because we wanted to be investment bankers or some other kind of thing. But it was a mistake, I think, ultimately, because you get the best training there. And the training consists of putting you in the field. At least in the United States, if you work for P&G in the U.S., you're going to go to a grocery store someplace in rural Ohio or Wisconsin, and you're going to be responsible for checking the store, making sure the products are shelved properly and exposed properly and in the right placement, talking to the manager of the store, making sure that they're getting the proper care and the service from P&G, that they like the products, tell them about new things that are coming, work on promotions. You actually have to focus on the sales of units at each of the stores in your route. So they give you a small amount but a lot of responsibility in that small area. Francesco, I don't know if that was your experience in Europe, but I would guess that it's probably similar, right? They confer this level of responsibility that you can totally manage. And then when you show you've got the skills to manage that, then they give you a little bit more and a little bit more. Is that still the case with P&G?
100%. There is one specific driver of this, Rob, is that P&G is a promotion from within company. So the next CEO in 20 years, in 25 years, is amongst the people that are starting today. So there is no other way than training the people. We knew in the room that the next management people were amongst us. And that is the case. I see my friends becoming senior vice presidents that were in the same batch, and it's incredible, the amount of training. And as you said, the amount of responsibility they would give us, the amount of trust, and how much we were on the ground with consumers, with customers. You know how many times I've been to people doing the laundry at home and explaining me how to do the laundry, and me pretending not to know how to do the laundry. And I was working in laundry for 6 years. And it's incredible the amount of things you discover when you go to people's home. And it's such a beautiful machine. I love P&G. I'm very grateful for all the training they've given me.
Now, I contrast that to my experience in the motion picture and television industry, where there's virtually no training. They hire people who know how to make shows. You prove that by making a show, right? So you can learn the hard way. I learned on a film crew. I was an apprentice, essentially, on a film crew. But then you become an executive, and suddenly you're thrust in a new position where you're not making the show anymore. You're managing the people who do. You have no management training. You have no experience with management. And this can be a very awkward learning curve for people. I went through it myself. I found it very challenging. And I think I saw many other examples of bad management while I worked at a movie studio. So it's quite interesting to me that a different corporation or different corporate environment can confer different skills on people. Like some companies take training very, very seriously. I know the banks do because they have fiduciary obligations. They have to manage people very carefully. But P&G is quite famous. If you want to learn about sales and how to manage accounts, I think there's no better company. But really, they're famous as a brand, right? So the second thing that you learn at P&G is that brands matter. And when we talk about brands all the time, everybody on social media thinks they're building a brand, right? This term is used very lightly. But in P&G, it's religion, right? It's core to the company. The brand matters, and they invest tremendous amounts of money. You know, soap costs nothing to manufacture. It's very cheap. Most of what you're paying for when you buy Ivory soap is the brand, the investment in the advertising and the marketing. And like you said, the training and the explanations, it's all part of the story. It's the storytelling that goes around the brand. Tell me a little bit about your experience managing brands for P&G, because you did that in China, you did that in Russia. You had to translate these stories to different markets.
When in P&G you manage a brand, the first thing to realize is that you're managing something that has been built over 100 years, and you carry it to the next generation of brand builders. So there is an advertising actually from Patek Philippe, the watch brand, that says, you never own a Patek Philippe, you merely carry it to the next generation. They're very expensive watches, and this is a beautiful brand campaign, and I think it's similar to the P&G way of managing a brand. All you're trying to do is to preserve this beautiful brand, like, to name a few: Pantene, Pampers, Tide, Gillette, and Head and Shoulders, giants, Mr. Clean, Pringles was a P&G brand. We sold it, and you carry it. So the first thing to understand is you need to just carry this brand with a lot of care to the next generation of brand builders. I have managed brands, yes, in Europe, in Russia, in China. The core aspect is the brand promise, what you promise to consumers, and the promise, how this promise is delivered emotionally and functionally with the product itself and with the brand experience. So when it comes to your question on how do you manage a brand differently in China, in Russia, in Europe, in the US, I want to oversimplify to the. It's no different. You need to
Okay.
deliver a brand promise in a relevant way to the customer. Now the
Right.
relevance is different. You don't
That
speak
might-
to the customer about the same in Italy, for example. When you speak about a detergent, it's all about whiteness, whiteness, whiteness. In Germany, it's about stain removal. It's the same detergent, so but they care about stain removal and not whiteness, different attribute. In China, it's about still, for example, on Pantene, it's about the celebrity endorsing the brand and less about the function. So that you need to know, but at the end, you need to deliver a promise that the customer cares about, and that's universal. That's universal. That was true on Wolf Project. That is true now on the technology that I sell, and you're right. We are obsessed about brands.
Okay, so you're at P&G and you get a deep training in brand management. You learn how to do that across multiple very different cultures, different languages, different societies. You also get training in how to run a small business and then how to grow that business as they give you more and more responsibility. You're managing a bigger and bigger, bigger responsibilities. So you got a lot of great training at P&G, but you also got exposure to a very important field, the beauty field. And you saw a gap, right? So you noticed, even though P&G has dozens and dozens of brands, and their big competitor, Lever Brothers, has a lot of other brands, there was a gap in the market you noticed, and that was the beginning of your spark of your idea to start a new business. So you basically took the training that you got from P&G and the market awareness and all the skills that you had built up, and then you applied it to a new section, a new sector where you saw that there was a gap in the market. Did I summarize it correctly? Is that how you got started in the beauty business?
That's how I naively got started. I thought that P&G was enough. P&G teaches you how to manage a big brand and to make it become a little bit bigger. So we don't do small things in P&G. The smallest brand must have 300 million sales, and it's probably too small to survive. So we would sell it as P&G. So unless you get to 1 billion, then we're not really talking, because that's the company size. So there are better companies that can manage smaller brands. So P&G didn't teach me the 0 to 1, the 0 to 10 million, and especially the 0 to. So I got out of P&G, and how do you create a barcode? How do you create a legal entity? How do you hire a person? How do you manufacture a formulation? How do you get funding? There was no funding in P&G. We have billions on the balance sheet and products that are hugely profitable. So not that money is not a problem, because the profitability is a problem, and we need to constantly grow it because Wall Street demands it. But I had to learn how to do the 0 to. And in P&G, you're a team. In a big corporate, you're a team. And when you're an entrepreneur, you typically start size 1, size just yourself doing everything. So I had to learn from scratch. And that's hard, Rob. That's you have been an entrepreneur as well when you start from 0. And you need to learn to take decisions on your own. There is nobody that tells you, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea. Your friends don't understand. So you're facing... I like to say that corporate is a mirror of who you are that is quite far. Your strengths are embellished. Yes, you are strong on some things and you're weak on other things, but your weaknesses are also somehow diminished by the system around you.
Yeah.
You will be pushed to deliver. When you're alone, your strengths are amplified. That's what people say, unleash your full potential, but your weaknesses are massively amplified as well. If you're bad in admin, the admin of a company will put you down. If you're bad in raising fund, you will go bankrupt. You better be good at raising fund if you need funds. So startups, entrepreneurship is an amplifier of your strength. It's an amplifier of your weaknesses. It's a much closer mirror at who you are, and you need to be ready for it.
Okay,
It's
so
tough.
we have a couple minutes before the break. For that time, tell me, when you left P&G to start your beauty company, what strengths did you discover that you had, and what weaknesses did you discover were amplified? Tell me about both of those experiences before the break.
I am a natural born salesman. I could sell my ideas. I could convince people. I can get people on board. I am a visionary. I'm a creative. I'm a futurist. I am a kid that is discovering the world. I'm 39. I'm about to be 40. And I feel like I make mistakes like when I was 12, because I'm excited. I'm an enthusiast. And that's amazing for a startup. You need like the spark, those are the strengths that I discovered. I have immense energy, grit. I don't give up. I don't give up. And that was all amplified. I am crap at admin. I hate admin. I would delay tasks, and that becomes a problem. I would not. I need an operator next to me, and sometimes my creativity and my vision gets in the way of reality. So, the distortion field of, yeah, that can happen. No, that will not happen. I'm going to do X millions next year. No, you won't. So there is an edge there is a limit between being crazy and being an optimist. So that's also a weakness.
How about things like brand management or brand building, right? Because when you're at P&G, you're given the brand, but it already exists. Someone else has developed that brand. They've tested it. They've done the research. They've built the campaigns. They have the whole marketing and
100%.
communication strategy. Did you have to figure all that out from scratch, like how to build a brand?
In a different way, yes, but that's where you're right. The brand building frameworks of P&G were incredibly helpful. So I just had to recreate a brand with no resources. So in P&G, you do a campaign and you have millions of dollars to advertise, to shoot it, to get a celebrity to endorse it. At Wolf Project, I had $25,000 to do the same thing. So good luck. But then I did it. And you're right, that it's possible to create a brand with much less.
This is one of the most amazing things about being an entrepreneur, is you have an idea. Yeah, you wake up one day and you've been thinking about a problem for days, perhaps. You wake up and you have an idea of how to solve that, and you try it. And you find out immediately whether or not it works. And if it works, you keep doing more, right? This is like Facebook ads. You mentioned that earlier. This is one of the best examples. Like, you can take $50 and test Facebook ads, and then test $50 more, and you learn and learn and learn, and then you go, okay, now I know what works. Pour on the money and watch it grow. I think when you're inside of a corporation, you don't get that immediate feedback, right? Because you're going to delegate that task to somebody else, and they're going to do the testing, and they'll probably delegate it to an agency or something. And so it's a little bit removed. But I think one of the exciting things about being an entrepreneur is it's all firsthand experience. You're kind of mainlining the business experience through yourself. Okay, we should take a little break here. And folks, you're listening to The Futurist. I'm Rob Tercek, and this week I'm talking to Francesco Urso, who is an entrepreneur and an author. We'll be back in just a minute.
Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcast, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, and Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network. For information about all our podcasts, go to provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show.
Hey there, you're listening to The Futurist, and I'm Rob Tercek. Welcome back. Today I'm talking to Francesco Urso, who is an entrepreneur who has launched his own business, sold it, and now is running another company. Before the break, we talked a little bit about taking that leap to becoming an entrepreneur. What we haven't talked about so far, though, is managing people, right? At P&G, your experience, you come in at the low level, you're being managed by people. They're growing your skills. They're managing your growth and your progress, correcting where they need to, encouraging where they need to, disciplining, I suppose, as well. What is it like as an entrepreneur to start hiring people? How do you decide what to hire? Where do you hire? How do you pay them?
It's hard because you don't have any framework and you don't know exactly what you're doing. And it's hard to motivate an entrepreneur, to motivate an employee when all you can tell them is, follow my dream. It's going to be tough. You're going to be paid very little. Statistically, it's not going to work. And you're going to sweat blood and tears. And it might work, it might not. So it's hard. You need to find the crazy ones at the beginning, and you cannot be too picky about who you hire. So at the beginning, you want the perfect number two, you want the perfect employee that will turn your company around and will help you. And none of them come, because how do you pay them? So unless of course, and I'm talking from my own experience, there are startups that are incredibly well funded and they can motivate them with shares and normal salaries, but it's definitely not the same activity system. However, what I can tell you is that you do find the crazy ones. You do find the people that are motivated by the dream, and you do find people that cannot wait to be unleashed and to be shown that the sky is the limit, and to be told that you have an idea, go do it. Let's try it together, as you were saying before. So it's fun, it's unsettling, and it's one of the best parts of being an entrepreneur, to create a team around you and to see that people believe in your idea, believe in you, and then are on the front line with you.
I agree with you. I think one of the most gratifying things when you're starting a business is when you hire someone and they come to you with an idea. They're like, hey, boss, I got an idea. I know what I want to do. Let me try this thing. And you say, sure, go for it. That sounds great. Try it. Or sometimes they'll come and they'll say, hey, over the weekend, I had an idea and I tried this and here's what I made over the weekend, right? And it's great, right? And you say, oh, great, do more of that. And so you start to discover that people have skills within themselves, right? So as a manager, your job is to help people uncover what are they really great at? And then you put them in that role. As a manager, as a startup company, you can do that. You can create a role for a person who's got a great skill. But here's the second challenge that you face when you do that. You're trying to build an organization, and you can't build an organization out of individuals. You have to build an organization out of job functions. And so if you start to create special jobs for people who have special gifts, then you don't create a company, you create a collection. It's like a rock and roll band with a great guitarist and a great drummer. But if the drummer quits and goes to a different band, you're in trouble because your band doesn't sound right anymore. You understand what I'm saying, right? Did you have that experience? Because I certainly have had that a lot in my career.
I have it more now because we're the divisions I manage at Hexagon are a little bit bigger. So we have roughly, one division has more or less 100 people, and we have that debate constantly. Oh, we have this great person that wants to do that job, and I keep on saying we don't design an organization around great people. I have a job that needs a great person inside that, and it's not vice versa. Again,
but if P&G would grow that person, right? P&G would say, grow the person, 100%. Right? So you have that tension. There's a little bit of a balancing act.
There can be an exception be made for exceptional people that, but at the end, it needs to be functional to the objectives we're trying to achieve as a business. Yep. And an organization's design needs to answer that, and the people inside the organizational design needs to answer that. With one limit is that if you have a superstar and that superstar is not entirely happy in that job, you can contain it for a while, but then you need to let the tiger free. You need to accept a bit of imperfection in the organizational design. That's also one thing I've learned, is that as things scale, the perfect plan I had in mind is just not going to happen as perfect as I wanted. I need to live with imperfection, and it's okay. And there is beauty in imperfection.
Nice. Spoken well by someone who ran a beauty company. What was the circumstance for you to decide to sell the company when you felt like you had grown it to a certain point? Then did you start to seek out a buyer?
Yes. The company needed bigger shoulders, bigger financial shoulders, more experience as well. I was personally very tired after 6 years, and as I told you before, I have a lot of resistance, resilience, grit, so I can go on for a long time. But at the same time, looking back now to that period of my life, I was tired. And sometimes entrepreneurs fail to accept that, fail to realize that. Mm-hmm. I called a person, this British firm that had made an offer a year prior. I didn't think that the offer was good enough. I didn't think it was time. And I called them up and said, hey, we just had a big distribution deal with a Target in the US. So Wolf Project was getting into Target. It was not in Target, but I knew we would get into Target. And for that, I needed more cash, more experience, more inventory, more everything. And I called them up and I said, are you still interested? And the guys were great. They didn't abuse of the fact that I was calling them to sell the company, that they didn't look out for me. We met in London over dinner. The deal was done over dinner in London.
Oh, great.
On a piece of paper. Then the lawyers took a long time to translate this piece of paper over pages and pages. But it was a beautiful conversation. They wanted it. I wanted it. It was a lot of trust. And then you go through the phase of grief. You've sold your company. You're happy, but you're sad. It's not your babe anymore. And a big chunk of your identity goes. I was a founder.
Yeah.
I am not a founder anymore. Now I'm an employee. I'm a president of a division. It's great. But I'm not a founder. And I'm okay with that 100%. But I'm just saying, when you quit a job or when you divorce or anything, you go through an adjustment phase of your identity.
Yeah. Yes. You're tearing a part of yourself away. You've put your heart and soul into. Also, you've kind of created the thing. It's a part of you. It's an idea of yours. Okay. So now that you're working at another company, you're working for a big corporation running a division. And how are you different as a manager than you were when you were at Procter & Gamble? How has the experience of being an entrepreneur changed you as a corporate employee?
I feel this is a psychologist session. It's very good questions, Rob. It's very good. It makes me look inside. Here. No, it makes me look inside, and it's great. I love to do a bit of introspection. If I sum the 2 plus now third experience of my professional life, so the P&G years, then the startup, the sale of the company, and now back to corporate, but at president level, managing divisions, so running my own show, I feel that the startup days have completed me in ways that would have never been possible in a corporate. I know the trenches. I know them. There is nothing that scares me of the trenches. You cannot beat me, and it's not a competition, but I still go and do the dirty things, and there is a part of me that loves it because I know the company inside out, even if I'm the president CEO now of these divisions. And I love it because I believe that it's a beautiful way to understand the company. I will give you an anecdote, and this is a physical one. We were doing a congress. The biggest congress in the aesthetic world is in Monaco in March, so it's coming up. And there were some logistical issues. We had to go pick up things, and we had a huge team of people helping us. I was the one going down in the garage and picking up the things and taking the boxes, bringing them up with my suit and tie. And people were like, "You're the president, don't do it." And I'm like, well, "Why does it matter? I'm one of. The hierarchy doesn't matter. I'm one of us. I consider it my company." So that changed me. I consider my division my company. It's not legally mine.
Right. But you take ownership for the responsibility.
100%, in ways that I didn't when I was in P&G. And I love the understanding the helicopter, the elevator from very top down to the details. I can go far quicker than I could before. Because when I was in my company...
That part is the P&G. The P&G teaches you the bottom up, like how to work your way up, so you understand how the whole machine works because you've worked your way through it. But I think that when you say being an entrepreneur completed you, what I'm hearing you say is that now, as the leader of a division for for another company, there's no challenge that you can't meet. You now know that you can handle anything. You have this tremendous confidence. I can see that in you. When we met, I got that immediately, right? There is no challenge that you can't surmount. You probably would not have gotten that if you stayed at P&G.
100%.
You would have gotten very good at certain things, right? You would eventually probably would have gone into finance or some department, would have become an expert at that. But as an entrepreneur, you have to be good at everything. You're tested in every place every day.
And also, Rob, there is an important part. You are beaten down to the floor so many times as an entrepreneur, so many times. You need to pick yourself back up on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So failure becomes part of who you are. Accepting failure becomes part. You know how many VCs I've pitched that said no? How many discussions went to nothing, even though I poured my heart and soul in there? And then what? And then it's another day. You pick yourself back up and you keep fighting. And a no becomes a day in business. And a failure becomes another learning. So it's a muscle. Failure becomes a muscle. And on that side, I'm strong. And there is no challenge that I cannot do. You're right. And I'll learn it.
Okay, so now as a manager with entrepreneurial experience, we're now facing a world that's going to change very quickly because of artificial intelligence. And on this show, we've had many other guests talk to us about AI, different companies that are building artificial intelligence. I myself have worked in that field for a couple of years, thinking about the application of AI to business problems. I want you to help me understand what it's going to be like to be a manager. This is a question I've been thinking about now for more than a year. It seems to me very clear now that we have agentic AI that can actually take action. It doesn't just give you an answer. It doesn't just give you something that it writes or generate a PowerPoint or a picture. I mean, we have that AI, of course. But now you can create an agent that actually takes action. It does something. So it doesn't just tell you what to do or give you the answer. It has agency. This is why we use the term agent. And what people are tending to do now, since really just November, it's just a few months ago, we're starting to see people build swarms of agents, a group of agents, a collection of agents that together can take on a whole set of actions for a business. And now people are speculating that you can have a company that consists of just a few human employees and a lot of agents. And there are a couple of people who are already saying that. They have 7 employees and 25 agents. Now, today, this is mostly small startup companies and mostly tech companies that are doing this. But it doesn't take a great deal of imagination to envision a time in 1 or 2 years where every manager in every company will now have to manage human workers and software agents, both together. And they're very different things to manage. Tell me what your perspective is about that, and tell me what you think that challenge will include.
I'm learning from you on this because I think you know more, so your vision is much more informed. As a manager, as a president, as part of the management board, I feel I embrace AI a lot. So I encourage my team to do as much, to be on the forefront. Every software engineer needs to teach me something, and instead of me pushing them, sometimes I feel like going a tiny bit sideways on your question, but sometimes I feel like it takes curiosity and imagination to push as managers AI. You can be an AI software engineer that uses Claude or ChatGPT for coding, but you cannot imagine how the future will be down the line. So the imagination and the creativity are still at the bedrock of the future. As a manager, I feel unlimited. I feel faster. I feel better in my decisions. My brainstorms can be quicker. My ideas can come to life in a much quicker way. So I am not afraid. I'm just trying to be the best at embracing this, because this will become a commodity. AI is a commodity. Like, think about the internet. When the internet got created, the internet companies had the power. Netscape and Internet Explorer and Safari and Godzilla and all of these. And then it's what we were able to do with the internet that took. I mean, who has the big valuations now? So I think the Claude and the ChatGPTs and all of these are just the tip of the iceberg. They're at the start, and then the companies that will be built on it. And we as managers have the duty to embrace. It's an inevitable tide. We shouldn't even debate on whether this is going to be the future or not. This is the future. Look at us today. Look at us a year ago. Look at Anthropic, how fast it has evolved over the last weeks. And as a manager, I feel incredibly excited. I don't feel threatened. If there is an agent that can do my job better than me, welcome. I'll find myself a different job where I can beat you at it. So we need to embrace it. And I feel limitless, like in the movie with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, well, what is your advice for someone who is currently at a corporation and thinking maybe it's time for them to start a new business, and maybe they're also a little bit worried about AI coming and taking away their job? What would you tell that person if you could speak to them right now?
Read my book. No,
okay.
Fear is an interesting feeling. You need to listen to your fear. It's a powerful signal in your body. And there are different kinds of fears, fear for life, fear for the future. But sometimes fear, it's also a kick in the butt. So I listen to my fear a lot. I analyze it. Sometimes fear is unjustified. So I have kind of a rule of third. Listen to your fear, embrace 1/3 of it, push back on another third, and completely disregard the last third. No, you're wrong. This part of the brain, you're wrong. This part, yeah, you're right, and I need to do something about it. And the last third is well, that's just stupid things that I shouldn't hear myself. So, to a software engineer that is going to be challenged by AI, I say use your creativity to understand where you can still make a difference. I believe, I'm an optimist. I believe that humans will make a difference.
Yeah.
Have to. I don't have the answer to what kind of coding a software engineer can do versus the agent. I don't know, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's a completely reinvention. Maybe look at the problem from a different angle. Humans will make a difference in the world. That I
agree with you.
I have
Also,
to believe that. I have to believe.
Okay, well, that's powerfully inspiring, I think, for the folks who are listening. Tell us, where can people find out more about you? The people who are listening, where can they find you on the web? Where can they find your book?
So my book can be found on Amazon. So if you just type "Quit to Win Francesco," I hope that SEO will bring my book up. People can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect with anybody that would want to connect. So Francesco Urso, in case you want to type an extra word, Hexagon, which is my employer. And people can connect with me by email, urso.francesco@gmail.com. So anytime, I'm happy to have discussions. I'm happy to learn from people more than anything. And
okay, so folks who are listening, to find Francesco Urso on LinkedIn, it's Francesco, last name is Urso. And the book is Quit to Win. And you can find it on Amazon because I just did. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure chatting with you today. I was super excited to chat with you. Tell us about the future of entrepreneurialism. Great fun to have you here. Folks who are listening, you've been listening to The Futurists. I'm Rob Tersick, and each week, Brett King and I will bring you another person who is actively shaping the future the way they see it. We'll be back next week with yet another futurist. Thanks to everybody who's helped us make this show, especially the folks at Provoke Media who make the show possible. Over and out. I'll see you next week. Well, that's it for The Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did, please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.